All right. So as I mentioned before, we're going to have a few team members who are going to be monitoring the chat here today. That's the best way to ask questions as we're going through this. We're going to try and cover quite a few different things in Gradelink. But if you do have any questions, feel free to go ahead and post it in the chat. I'll be answering a few as they go. And also, like I said, some of the team members will have a chance to answer some things as we go through. Towards the end of the presentation, I'll also be sure to share some contact information in case you want to reach out to me directly afterwards. So either way, I'd be happy to help you out that way. Without further adu, let's dive into it. We got about an hour here to cover quite a bit of material, so we want to dive in as much as we can into covering as much as possible. Today, we're mostly going to be focusing on the administrator login within Gradelink, so that's going to be our primary focus, although we're going to take a little bit of an opportunity to see a little bit about what some other users will see as well, like teachers, parents, students, and so on. So as you can see here, I'm logged in as an administrator in Gradelink. I've got a few different buttons that show up on the left-hand side. These buttons oftentimes will pretty accurately display exactly what to expect out of a certain thing. So for example, we land on the communicate section by default. Now when we see this particular page, this is our Gradelink news page. It's a place where we're going to be updating you on exactly what's going on at Gradelink, whether it's new updates or a free webinar that we're offering right now. You can go ahead and see what's going on with us. Of course, this is also an excellent chance for you to go ahead and share information with your families and your staff at your school. You can see here at the top of the page, I've got a few different buttons that I can click on. Similar to Gradelink News, we do have school news and teacher pages. These are newsletters that exist within the system. It's a great opportunity to be able to go ahead and create updates and post different things that are happening around the school. This is something that the administrative staff can control, and you really don't need to be an expert when it comes to crafting a website or knowing how to make things look great or any of that coding. I have no idea how to code personally, but this is easy enough that you can go ahead and update it almost like a Word document. You can come in here, post updates, post resources, hyperlinks, and even pictures and other things like that you can go ahead and provide to your parents and even your staff when they log in. It's a great source of doing this. You can also share it outside of the system, either as a saved PDF file, or you can see in the top right there's a share button where I can actually provide links in emails or directly onto my website if I'd like to do that. Now, we don't want to leave teachers out of that. We do have teacher pages, basically the same exact idea as school news, just monitored by the teachers, as you might guess. A little bit more privatized, so you have to be working with that teacher in some capacity to see their pages. But again, a great resource for being able to provide exactly updates as to what's going on in the classroom, whether that's overall with that teacher or for a specific subject. As you can see on the left-hand side, I have both general announcement pages, as well as things like language arts, mathematics, and so on. And these are great options for conveying information to your families, of course, but if you want to take it a step further, we do have direct methods of communication. SmartSend Pro, for example, is going to go ahead and allow you to reach out to people a little bit more directly. You can see here, for example, that we default to email. Now, if you've used email before, and I trust that a lot of you probably have, this is going to feel very familiar. You can go ahead and create custom signatures for yourself. You can go ahead and save things as drafts if you want to come back to it later on, add attachments, all those kind of things. But Gradelink does differentiate itself a little bit by giving you the ability to go ahead and schedule out your emails ahead of time and create powerful custom groups to reach out to people efficiently. The scheduler is exactly what it sounds like. If you want to write up an email today, but send it out in a couple of weeks, a couple of months, even a couple of years, if you're really on top of things, you could send it out in 2025. Better to be prepared. You can go ahead and select a future date and time and get this email written up today, but have it sent out later so you don't need to forget about it. You can also go ahead and use custom groups. Certain groups exist right out the box for Gradelink. You can go ahead and reach out to all of your parents, all of your students, and so on and so forth. Right? But if you want to make your own custom group, something really specific, like let's say every single Girl Scout who has an allergy to bees, I don't know why you would want that, but if you did, you could go ahead and very easily make a custom group of it. Right? These groups are unique to the user, so different teachers and administrators can have their own custom groups that they return to that they can easily organize on their own, separate from everyone else. Now, email's great. We have the ability, of course, to utilize email as a way of communicating with people, but if you want to take it a step further, we have text and voice messaging as well. All those neat features that we were talking about before, as far as the custom groups and the scheduling, both exist here for text and voice messaging as well. But keep in mind that this is an administrator-only feature, and it is a premium service. So there is an additional cost here if you want to opt into it. But of course, it's great for mass communication. It's great for a few other things. There's a question here about monitoring who is reading the emails. It does send you an email receipt to show you who it was delivered to, who it failed to deliver to, those sorts of things. It doesn't necessarily give you read receipts or click-throughs or things like that. This is a good question, though. So again, you can utilize this text and voice messaging from an administrator-focused method of communication. So again, like I said, teachers won't necessarily be able to utilize this, but you are going to still have the major tools like the scheduling and the custom group creator to reach out more directly to people. Okay. All right, so that largely covers the communication section of the system. We're going to go ahead and migrate down here. So we're actually going to focus largely for the first half of this presentation on more administrative back-end oriented features, organization of data for things like student data management, financial information, and online enrollment tools. And from there, in the latter half of the presentation, we're going to focus more on academic tools like grading, attendance, and report cards. That kind of gives you an idea of where we're going to be headed there. We're going to go right down here into the student section. It's exactly what it sounds like. We have the ability to create student accounts through here and monitor all sorts of different types of data. So if anybody is really excited about student data management, you definitely want to tune in at this point. Now, there are a lot of you out there. This is where we're going to get a chance to cover everything from student demographic data like birthday, gender, and ethnicity, all the way to emergency contacts, medical information, and even other things like counseling or behavioral information. You can see out here on this particular page, we get a quick view of just everything that's going on with the student, kind of at a bird's eye view, or a holistic sense, right? So we've got everything from the student's photo, and right below that, the classes that they're taking and their current grades in those classes. There's a section in the middle here for emergency contacts, whether that's mom and dad or if it's Uncle Jack, who's authorized for pickup. And up here, we have custom tags that we can go ahead and program into the system, which not only are going to allow us to run reports on these tags, but also tie back into that communication section that we saw before, where you can go ahead and put those custom email, text, or voice messaging groups together. Now, I don't want to spend too much time going into every single sub-tab at the top of the page. Many of them are very self-explanatory in terms of the information that it's tracking, right? Contacts will be any contact related to the student, both their relationship to the student and any permissions that they have, like if they're an emergency contact or if they're authorized for pickup. Addresses, of course, would be their home addresses. We can print address labels directly from Gradelink. If you want to be able to go ahead and send snail mail out to your users, you can do so as well. And perhaps two of the other big ones would be documents and files, which sound very similar to one another, but actually serve very different purposes. Documents, for example, is a lot of miscellaneous information that doesn't necessarily have a place in the main demographics page, but it's still information that we might want to keep track of. This includes everything from religious information to language preferences to IEP information, and even things like financial assistance codes. We can track that on here. Files, on the other hand, is a little bit different. Through files, we can upload files directly into Gradelink into the student's profile. These are typically administrative files that could be everything from a copy of their birth certificate to maybe a transcript from another school if they're a transfer student. Gradelink doesn't necessarily have data limits in terms of how much you can store in here, so your bandwidth is endless, meaning you can store as many files for as many students as you need and never have to worry about running out of space or have certain files disappear later on. Now, kind of navigating away from some of this more generic information, we're going to take a look at some of these bigger tabs at the top. Gradelink does have what's called the counseling section, which is actually more like behavioral incidents that have occurred. Both administration and teachers can go ahead and log a specific incident that's occurred, whether it's in the classroom or on the playground or elsewhere. And you can see here it's a chance to program in specifically what happened with that student. It answers all the major questions of who was involved, where did it happen, what was the follow-up action, and who did we notify about it. Now, obviously, we don't want the administration to have to monitor each student individually or have to run a report to stay on top of this, so you can have the system alert you every time a teacher logs a particular incident. Administration can also allow parents to see some of this information, although obviously, as you can see here, certain things are for private or internal use only. And parents can even sign up for their own custom alerts to be alerted as soon as their child is involved in some sort of incident. Moving along, we do have medical information that you can track as well. There are a myriad of different buttons that we can click on here. We want to focus on just a few of them today very quickly. You can store different pieces of information in the exam section, whether it's simple things like office visits, or if we want to get more specific, we can do things like scoliosis screenings, physical exams, vision screenings, and hearing screenings, all of which have their own custom reports here if you want to get very thorough about it. At the top of the page, we have a few other sub-tabs, such as immunization reports, where we can keep track of the students' immunization records, as well as their latest dosages and booster shots, and keep track of when their next dosage is due. The student is a little bit behind on their chickenpox vaccines. We might want to reach out to them. We can also keep track of any medications that the child is taking or that they're able to take in the event of an emergency. This could be things that are specific to the student or more general things like the parent said that they can take aspirin in the event that they have headaches. And finally, the medical history report allows us to keep track of all past and present medical health conditions related to a particular student. This covers basically everything from simple vision problems, like them having to wear glasses and sit closer to the board, to things that are a little bit more serious, like allergies, and if they get stung by a bee, if they actually have to go into some sort of shock or anything like that, or things like diabetes, seizure disorder, and so on. Keep in mind that medication information and medical health condition information can be shared with the teacher so that they can be aware of what they need to do in the event of an emergency for their student roster. The last big button that we want to talk about at the top here is the prospect section, largely because this will help us transition into the full enrollment and application process within Gradelink. The prospective student section is exactly what it sounds like. It's an opportunity for you to be able to keep track of families who are interested in attending your school. They might not necessarily be ready to apply yet, but we want to nurse them along until they get to that point. You can see here, if I click on a student entry on the left-hand side, it pops up with information on the right-hand side that I can use to either manage the workflow of follow-up actions or see the information that the family filled out online. In the bottom right corner of the screen, there's a prospective students form. This is something that would go directly on your website that a parent can fill out if they're interested in learning more about your organization. They'll fill out simple information such as their contact info, their child's grade and date of birth, and how they heard about you. Not only does this information log immediately in the left-hand side, but it'll also go ahead and notify you and any other administration that want to be able to keep on top of these prospective students. Above that, we also have a workflow section. These tools are kind of reminiscent of mini CRM tools, similar to what salespeople would use to track leads. So you can see here, there's a section for notes, different tags that you can go ahead and attribute to different cases, and below that, things like follow-up dates and actions. So if I wanted to schedule an interview for somebody, or add them to a mailing list, or invite them to some sort of event, I could do so on here and run reports off of it. I can also post in closing dates and a disposition. In this case, enrolled is our ultimate goal. Now, if our goal is to get them to enroll in the system, we want to make use of Gradelink's Enroll Me feature. Gradelink's Enroll Me feature is a premium service that we offer that allows you to manage online applications, both for your first-time applicants who might go through your front-facing website, and for re-enrolling families who will log into the Gradelink parent portal and resubmit their information. Now, if I'm a returning family, I can go ahead and just update my information. Year after year, I won't have to necessarily input my students' information over and over again. Gradelink retains that data and just allows families to update them and any other crucial information year after year during the re-enrollment process. For first-time applicants, they'll go through your website and fill out any forms that you would ask them to normally fill out either via paper or some other method, now directly through Gradelink. These forms are completely customizable, and we'll do our best to absolutely replicate whatever forms you currently ask your families to fill out. You can see here, obviously, some basic information can be kept track of, but if you also have things like waivers that you need them to sign, attachments that you need them to download, or vice versa, even attachments or files that you need them to provide to you as a part of the application process, we can go ahead and tie that in. Gradelink also supports online payments. So if at the end of the application you want them to pay some sort of fee, you can go ahead and tie that in as well. Now, similarly to the prospective student section, there is a simple workflow tab here. Gradelink can alert you if you have a brand new applicant. And Gradelink starts tracking Enroll Me information as soon as the application is started, not necessarily when it's submitted, meaning that you'll never actually lose a lead. Let's say a first-time applicant goes onto your website and starts filling out the application. They get halfway through, they decide they have to take a break, they're going to come back to it later. You don't have to wait for them to come back later and fill out that information. The half of the info that they already filled out on your website will automatically log on the left-hand side. And you can even have the system alert you that you have a brand new person who started their application. You can see here, there are a variety of different form statuses that you can make use of within Enroll Me. You can technically be notified for any of these, not necessarily just when an application is started, but also when it's submitted, or when somebody on your team marks it pending approval, marks it that it's in process, or marks that it's been approved or not approved. But perhaps more importantly, Gradelink actually allows you to go ahead and write up email templates that can be associated with these statuses as well, that will automatically be sent out to the applicant when their form status changes. For example, let's say I'm looking over somebody's application. It looks pretty good, but they forgot to include a copy of their driver's license and they haven't paid their registration fee yet. I might mark them pending approval. They're pending based on the fact that they need to send in a couple more things. And as soon as we mark them pending, Gradelink can send out an automated email that I've written out ahead of time to that applicant, letting them know that they have to log back in and fill out just a few more things. Enroll Me can also do contracts online as well, basically meaning that it can go ahead and take this information that the families fill out directly online and put it into a printable file that you can go ahead and have them sign in person, or just something that you can print out to store it yourself. Once I'm ready, I can go ahead and approve an application, which marks it as pending import, as you can see on the left-hand side. What this basically means is that Gradelink is ready to take the data that the family filled out directly online and move it into that student's profile that we just viewed a few minutes ago. It's as easy as clicking Batch Import at the top of the page, selecting your different students, and clicking Run Import. This will take the information they filled out online and directly migrate it over to the student section for you. Now, I did mention before that as a part of the online enrollment application, we can go ahead and actually have people submit payments directly online. It's actually true that you can have parents submit payments online through the financial piece later on for any sort of fee. This is a good transition over into our financial section. Now, to preempt this portion of the webinar, it's important to talk about the extent of what Gradelink's financial piece can do. It's primarily an accounts receivables program, meaning it allows you to keep track of different charges and fees and transactions related to a specific student or family. Traditionally speaking, most schools are going to want to keep track of basic things like tuition, registration, lunch fees, and so on. But you can go ahead and utilize Gradelink to actually keep track of any and all transaction type within the system. These could be before and after care fees, specific field trips, if you do paid yearbooks, anything like that can be kept track of within the system. And not only will you be able to manage these different fees on the back end and run reports off of them, but you can also convey this information to parents so that when they log on, they're actually able to view monthly or year-to-date statements and see exactly how much they owe the school. If you do want to take it a step further, we do integrate with a third-party merchant vendor that would allow you to have parents make payments directly through Gradelink. You can see here with Gradelink Quick Pay, they can go ahead and submit their payment information via either online e-check or credit card. All 4 major carriers are supported. Diners Club gets left out this time, unfortunately. Gradelink also allows for auto pay plans. These are very common for tuition payment plans, right? If you've got a 6-month tuition payment plan, a 9-month, 12-month, whatever it might be, you can work with your families to set up automatic recurring withdrawals, again, either via electronic check or via a debit or credit card. This will make it so that the user doesn't have to log into Gradelink every time they need to make a payment to the school. On a specific bill on date, money will automatically be taken out of the user's account and paid directly towards the school. Other than that, the financial piece is largely about running different reports, whether it's account balances and statement summaries, or aging reports to see who hasn't paid you in a certain amount of time, or other reports such as that. Recently, Gradelink also partnered up with Fax Tuition Management to form an integration that will allow users on the parent side to click a button to log into their Fax account. So if you are using Fax, you can continue to integrate that with Gradelink and utilize both that and Gradelink services. Moving along, we want to focus briefly on this staff section. It's important to see what we can keep track of as far as staff users are concerned within Gradelink. When we talk about staff, there are a few different types of users that we can discuss. Primarily speaking, you're going to go ahead and track things such as administration, teachers, or non-active staff users. Administrators are fairly straightforward. Generally speaking, within Gradelink, you'll have a few master administrators who can access settings, permissions, and the like. These are kind of your master level users in the system. Below that, we have what's called limited administrators. Limited admins are the ones that allow you to go ahead and provide them with certain access levels to the system. For example, you might have a registrar who has access to the basic features that we've seen thus far, but we don't necessarily give them to the upcoming features that we're going to see, like academics, grades, attendance, lesson plans, and so on. Below that would be teacher accounts. These teachers, of course, only have access to the classes and the students in those classes that we give them access to. If, for example, I click on Ernest Hemingway, one of the teachers at this school, we can see on the right-hand side exactly the classes that he has access to, as well as how well those classes are performing at any given time. Finally, we have somebody here, like Alley-Oop. She's a no-access type user, meaning that she can't log into Gradelink, but we still want to keep track of her information. I do see some questions as far as cost for certain premium services. I do encourage you to reach out with us afterwards. We don't want to get too much into costs right now, but we would be happy to speak with you after the presentation. Like I said, I'll be providing some contact information once we're done. All right. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and shift gears a little bit here and talk more about some of the academic features within Gradelink. First and foremost, we have to discuss terms and classes. They're not the most exciting thing in the world, but it's important to note that Gradelink is really flexible in terms of its design, meaning that you can have any sort of term set up within the system, whether it's the more traditional quarter, trimester, or semester systems, or something that's a little bit different. You can program that in. Similarly, classes are very flexible within Gradelink as well. As we navigate into the classes section in this particular area, you can see here on the right-hand side, we have a list of classes that have already been set up. These classes range from more academic-oriented gradebooks like mathematics and language arts, to comment classes, behavioral classes, and even things like attendance or sports classes. The way that we set up these different classes is determined by the schools on the left-hand side. Many of them are fairly straightforward. As you can see here, we can program in things like the class's title, the teachers in charge of the course. As we get further down, more specific information, like custom grade scales or graduation category requirements that will display on things like the transcript. Gradelink also has advanced scheduling tools that allow you to program in schedules for your staff and for your parents and students so that they can log in at any time to see exactly where they're at any point in the day. You can see here in this particular section, we have both simple and advanced schedule options. Simple is exactly what it sounds like. A simple schedule is one in which the class happens at the same time of day every single day of the week in the same room number, right? For example, maybe this class Class happens at period 1, 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock a.m. in room 200. This will be consistent throughout the entire week, meaning it's fairly simple, nothing too complex about it. But if we'd like, we can go ahead and when creating a class, create weekly or bi-weekly advanced schedules. This allows us to program in more specific variances in this particular class. Maybe, for example, this class happens during period 1 from 8 to 9 a.m. only on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. But on Tuesday and Thursdays, it actually happens in the afternoon from 1 to 2 p.m. We can program this into the system and use this to make more complex advanced schedules for our staff and for our students. Keep in mind, transitioning from one year to the next, or even just from one term, such as quarter 3 to the next, quarter 4, is very easy within Gradelink as well. We're able to copy a list of existing classes in just a click of a button, and we can either choose to include the existing students in those classes if we're moving from within 1 year, or exclude those classes or those students from those classes, meaning that if we're moving from, let's say, the 2018-2019 school year into the 2019-2020 school year, we can copy all of our classes over with all the same parameters, but leave the students out of it. Meaning transitioning from 1 year to the next is very, very easy. Now, once the classes are set up, that's where the teacher starts taking over. So let's shift gears a little bit here and talk a little bit about what teachers will be able to see. We'll focus first on lesson plans. There's a lot to dissect here. If you're familiar with lesson plans, you're going to like the level of customization here that you have within Gradelink. You can see here, I'm looking at this week's worth of lesson plans for a 3rd grade teacher. I've got quite a few different subjects listed on the screen here, from English to social studies to even science and health. Everything about these lesson plans can be completely customized by the instructor. You can see, for example, that on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I've opted to start my day by teaching English and migrating into social studies, whereas on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I've opted to start with mathematics and transition into science and health. Even simple things, like the color of the lesson plans, can be completely customized by the instructor, meaning that if I wanted to change English to the color pink and mathematics to the color teal, I could change that. But probably most importantly, when I click on a lesson plan, it will load in with the contents of that particular lesson. For example, where it says lesson, objectives, materials, and so on. These are actually represented via different tabs for each lesson when I click on one. These tabs are completely customizable by each and every instructor, meaning that even within the same school's database, one teacher's lesson plans might look different from another's. If, for example, I didn't feel like I was going to use this materials tab too much, I could remove it entirely and add in a brand new tab, such as one called Notes. Via the lesson plan section, I'm also able to tie in standards, assignments, and attachments directly within Gradelink. This allows me to take my lessons all the way to the assignments phase, tie it into the grade sheet, and add grades to it, which will eventually populate onto the report card, allowing me to take it from lesson all the way to the finalized report, cradle to grave. You may have also noticed as we were going through some of these different tabs that on the right-hand side there's a comment section. This is a chance for teachers to go ahead and communicate either with one another, or leave notes for themselves, or even have an administrator who's monitoring these different lesson plans leave a note for the teacher. If, for example, I had noticed that this lesson section is blank, I could go ahead and leave a comment for my teacher so that the next time they log in, they can read that comment and make sure that they improve upon this and include an actual lesson in this section. You'll notice that in the top left corner here, there's a button that says Open. Looks like a little manila folder icon. One of the upsides of using a system like Gradelink is the ability to save lesson plans and assignments into the system in order to pull them up later on. We call this your lesson plan collection tool. It allows you to form a library of lesson plans so that next year you don't have to start from scratch. For example, I've got the Buy the Great Horn Spoon drawing copy assignment. If I click Select here, you can see it loads in with the lesson, objectives, and other information on this lesson that I may have created years ago. I can also go ahead and share these lesson plan collections with other teachers that I'm working with, meaning that I'm able to work collaboratively. As we'll see later on the grade sheet, I can do the same thing for assignments. Not only can I save my assignments into Gradelink, but I can share those collections with other teachers as well. Now, of course, even the best laid plans of mice and men sometimes go awry. Especially this year when we've had so many weather issues and other issues that have popped up, sometimes you have to move your lesson plans around. And Gradelink makes that really easy for teachers so they don't have to struggle to figure out how to squeeze everything in. You may have noticed that for each and every lesson, there's this nice little double arrow icon. If I click on that, it allows me to go ahead and move my lesson plans around very easily. For example, I can back up my lesson plans a certain number of days, bump them forward, or extend them. Bumping them forward one day, for example, will bump all future lesson plans forward an equal amount as well. Meaning that if, for example, I wanted to bump everything forward 5 days, not only would this bump forward to the 11th, but it would bump all future lesson plans forward an equal amount. You can also see I have other simple features like a copy and paste feature where I can copy an existing lesson plan into another day. There's repetitive ones. So for example, if every Friday, let's say I did mathematical times tables, I can go ahead and program that in. And if I wanted to make it even easier for myself, I can actually drag and drop lesson plans entirely. For example, let's say I actually meant for this particular lesson plan to be on Friday. I can literally pick it up and drag it right on over to Friday. You can view lesson plans in a number of different ways by switching through different views in the top left from month, week, day, and list views, each of which can provide different amounts of information depending on what the teacher's preferences are. You can see here, for example, that when we switch to the month view, all we're displaying is the given lesson on any given day, versus the week view where we show far more information, such as objectives, materials, and assignments. Lesson plans are also able to be printed out or saved as PDF files if you don't have constant access to Gradelink on any given day. So now we've set up our lesson plans. The next step is to actually start building out our grade sheets here. But before we get into a complex grade sheet like this, we need to discuss how we set up the different fundamentals here. First and foremost, Gradelink allows teachers or administrators to set up assignment types. As you can see in this particular section, these would be your categories of assignments that you're going to be grading as an instructor. On the right-hand side, we list out a few of examples here: classwork, homework, participation, and tests and quizzes, each of which has its own percentage weight associated to it for the overall grade. You can see on the left-hand side, we also have a few different checkboxes that an instructor could select to do some other cool things, like extra credit or dropping the lowest grade in a particular type. It's also possible for the administration to set this up on behalf of their teachers and lock them into following a specific grading style, meaning that if the administration wanted to mandate that all classes had tests and quizzes being worth 40% of the grade, they could lock it so that teachers can't make changes to it. Now, once these assignment types are created, we can start crafting different assignments. Again, pretty easy here. If we look at this particular assignment section, we can go ahead and see here that we put in a title, a date assigned and a date due, a brief description, including hyperlinks, and we can add any attachments on the right-hand side. All of this allows me to go ahead and provide this information to parents and students who might log in to view upcoming assignments, whether it's a homework assignment, a test, or some upcoming project that we need to be aware of. As we get further towards the bottom of the page here, we can go ahead and see that there's further information. For example, I can customize my grading style, whether I want to grade based off the percentage, letter grade, or out of a certain amount of points. Gradelink also supports standard-based grading. We have a number of different standard sets already loaded into the system, including Common Core and a number of state standards as well. It's as simple as just selecting the standards that you're interested in adding to this assignment, and they'll automatically be graded when this assignment is graded. Thus far, we've largely been talking about academic classes that are graded numerically, based off percentages and point values. It's also possible to use Gradelink with what's called custom classes. These would be classes for lower grade levels where you might not necessarily be grading assignments for them. You're just measuring certain objectives from time to time. Gradelink does offer these custom classes as well, where instead of creating these different assignments and grading them throughout the course of the term, you'll just come in from time to time and update their progress on certain objectives. Easiest example of this is to think of like a pre-kindergarten student, where one of the objectives might be to master the ABCs. We don't necessarily give a weekly test on whether or not they can do the ABCs and score them out of 50 points, but we might just say that they're making progress or that they've mastered it, and we might want that to be reflected on something like a progress report or report card. Gradelink is able to do that. Finally, you can add assignments to a collection as well. We already talked about this a little bit in the lesson plan section, but similarly, in the assignment section, you are able to pull from old assignments that you've created or old assignments that other teachers have created if they're sharing it with you. This allows you from year to year to just pull from existing assignments you've created in the past and make any necessary changes to them if you need to. Keep in mind, as soon as an assignment is created and placed on the grade sheet, it does go live for all users, meaning that parents, students, administrators, and any other teachers who have access to this class will be able to see it immediately, either via a list view or in a calendar format. If we navigate over to the Gradebook section, it's fairly straightforward here. If you've used an online gradebook before, this is going to feel very similar. And if you haven't, it's very easy to make use of. When I want to grade an assignment, I can click the grade button at the top of the page. This will take me to a section that has 3 distinct interactable columns. The first being the score section, where I can put in the total number of points or a percentage score or flat letter grade to denote how well the student did on any given assignment. Let's say this assignment was relatively easy, and though it's out of 40 points, everyone did fairly well. Almost everybody got a 40. If I type 40 into the top value and click this triple blue arrow icon, it will automatically apply the 40 points to everybody. You can make any necessary changes from there. The second column is the grade code. These are alternative grade codes. So things like M for missing, AB for absent, and EX for excused. If we click the grade code button at the top here, we can actually see exactly what these denote, as well as what their impact on the overall student grade is. You'll notice here, for example, that the school has opted to say that a missing assignment is worth 0, and an incomplete, similarly, is also worth 0, whereas excused and absent assignments are excluded from the overall grade average. This is completely customized by the school, not by Gradelink. So it's a school-wide setting that the administration can go ahead and apply anytime themselves. Finally, I can go ahead and leave comments for my students so that when parents or students log into the system, they're able to read anything that I'd like to share with them on an assignment-by-assignment basis. For example here, I can say, excellent work, automatically drop it down to everybody. If there are comments I find myself using more often than others, I can go ahead and put them in my drop-down menu here. I can manage this by clicking the Manage Comments button in the bottom left, which will allow me to program in comments that I use on a regular enough basis that I don't want to have to necessarily type them all the time. Very similarly, when we create assignments, as soon as we plug grades in, it automatically has them go live for all users, including the student and parents who can view their grades online and any other teachers and administrators who have access to this grade sheet. Parents can also sign up for grade-based alerts when an assignment is entered in, meaning that if the child gets a positive grade or a negative grade for a class, they can go ahead and receive a quick alert about it. So even if you're not the type of parent who logs in all the time, if you want the system to alert you when your child isn't doing so well, you can sign up for those specific alerts, even on a class-by-class basis. Now, before we talk about how we get this finalized class grade onto things like progress reports, report cards, and transcripts, we do want to take a brief moment to talk a little bit about the attendance sheet. Gradelink's attendance can be done in a number of different ways, ranging from class-based attendance, which is periodic, where you'll take attendance multiple times throughout the day, which is fairly typical for things like middle school and high school. Or you can do a once daily attendance class, common for things like homerooms, or for your lower grade levels where they're largely sticking with the same staff member in the same location throughout the course of the day. You'll notice here that in this particular school attendance sheet section, I've got the student names on the left and different attendance values at the top of the page, starting with obvious things like present and absent, and scrolling through other options such as inclement weather, extended care, and lunch options. It's important to talk about attendance having two separate values. Some of them are more attendance oriented, as you'll see on here. So present, absent, and tardy, for example. And some of them are actually what we refer to as billing values, such as extended care and my lunch options here. These billing values are oftentimes less about taking a head count for everybody who's in extended care or getting lunch today, and more about tying it in with that financial piece that we discussed earlier in the presentation. For example, if I were to mark down certain students as having purchased lunch for the day, not only does this let me know that on any given day, for example, March 7th, I had 2 students get hot lunch 1, it automatically also posts a charge onto the student's ledger in the financial piece. For example, hot lunch 1 might be worth a $5 charge. When I check this box, it'll put a tentative $5 charge on the student's account that will automatically post once the administrator chooses to refresh all of the lunch charges. This gives me a chance to uncheck any boxes if there's a mistake before I choose to post them. Gradelink also allows you to keep track of financial assistance codes, meaning that if the student is on a free or reduced lunch program, Gradelink will check the student's account before applying the charge to their ledger. So if lunch is normally $5, but the student is on a free or reduced lunch plan, it can automatically adjust it to, let's say, $0 or $2 or whatever else you've programmed into the system as different options. As far as attendance values are concerned, you can customize not only the attendance options that you see at the top of the page, but also how they interact with one another. This means, for example, that if you're the type of organization that says that 4 tardies equal a single absence, the more tardies I select here, the more they'll contribute towards the absence. And once a student has 4 of these tardies logged up in a given time frame, it'll automatically credit them 1 absence. Similarly to the grade-based alerts that we discussed before that allow parents to be able to receive alerts every time a low or high grade is entered in a classroom, parents can also sign up for alerts on attendance. So the system can automatically alert or notify the parents when their child is marked absent or even tardy. Now with the remaining time, let's talk a little bit about custom reporting. Gradelink has different attendance and academic reports that can normally be accessed via the administrator or teacher report section. This particular interface doesn't necessarily cover every single report that Gradelink is able to run, but it does primarily give you a good idea of how many academic-based reports are possible, and this is also the central hub of where you'll be able to access things like progress reports, report cards, and other important reports such as GPA and scores, and attendance options. There are even some miscellaneous reports that can be accessed in this particular section as well, such as a family directory, service hours, transcripts, student and address labels, and even things like an Apple School Manager export. Once I'm ready to run report cards at the end of a particular term, I'll have the teacher or the administrator conclude a class. If we navigate back over into the teacher section, you can see here the bottommost button is called Conclude. Concluding a class basically tells Gradelink that at least for right now, this particular class is done with. I'm not going to be changing any grades. I'm not going to be adding a new assignment or anything like that. I'm finishing up with this and I'm ready to basically send it to the printers. Keep in mind, this is a finalized action for the teacher specifically. They can't unconclude their own class. It would kind of defeat the purpose. So if they do find a mistake later on or realize that they concluded a class a little bit prematurely, they have to reach out to the administrator. Once a class is concluded, that grade will automatically post onto things like report cards and transcripts. Though keep in mind, if I want to run a preview of a report card or transcript ahead of time to make sure that I can iron out any major issues before they pop up, I can go ahead and run report cards or transcripts in preview mode. This particular interface allows you to see just how easy it is to actually run a report card in Gradelink. There are essentially three things that we need to select. The first allows me to select my terms that I want to include in this report card. In this case, I've got the 2 semesters and my 4 quarters that I want to show up on my report cards. Secondly, I'm going to go ahead and select the students that I want to run this for. I can go ahead and generate it for individual students, an entire classroom, or one whole grade level. Finally, I'm going to select my profile. Profiles can be a little bit difficult to understand sometimes, but it's best to specify it as this. Each report profile can have its own set of options that are unique to that profile. A good example would be like, let's say you have the same general report card template for grades K through 8. For your upper grade levels, you might want to display GPA, but for those lower grade levels, you don't necessarily want GPA to be selected. This would give you effectively 2 separate profiles, one in which GPA is displayed and one in which it isn't. So when running report cards, we want to make sure that we've selected the right report profile that contains the correct options. Let's take this opportunity, now that we know how easy it is to run these report cards, to see a couple of examples of what Gradelink could do for us. We'll take a look at 2 examples of report cards here today. But keep in mind that Gradelink has a large variety of different report card templates that you can make use of. Generally speaking, our main goal is to collect from you an example of what your report card currently looks like, or if you're looking to make a change, we'll work with you to choose one of our different templates that you can utilize moving forward. Keep in mind that you're not limited to a single type of report card within Gradelink, meaning if you need 2 report cards or even 3 that look wildly different from one another for your different grade levels, we'd be happy to work with you to make sure that we can accommodate. This would be what's called the multi-term report card, which is a single sheet report card that's fairly typical for middle schools and upper schools. You can see here a lot of the information is consolidated very closely. You can see that we have class data in terms of grades and effort, as well as numbered comments that can be personalized for the school. And moving down, we can also see things like behavior, a small section for narrative comments, and advanced information on things like school and worship attendance. But again, Gradelink has quite a variety of different report cards. This would be our letter landscape bifold report card. If you can imagine it folding right open down the middle here, you would open it up to see information on both the left and right hand side. So this is the inside of the report card. You can see the information is a little bit more thorough here. Each class has a little bit more room to express information about how well the child did. For example, underneath each class, we have what Gradelink refers to as subgrades. History has facts and concepts, map skills, and research skills, among other options that we can go ahead and program grades in for. This allows me to specify that, well, the student did really well in things like projects and research skills, for example. They did struggle sometimes on things like facts and concepts or vocabulary. Allows me to get a little bit more nuanced with the way that I want to approach grading within the system. If I scroll down, I can also go ahead and take a look at the right-hand side, which would be the nice personalized front cover that Gradelink can work with you on. And on the left-hand side, a larger section for those narrative comments that we saw briefly on the previous report card example. Now, it's important to keep in mind that in terms of conveying report cards to parents, there are a few different options that we can utilize. We've already talked about thus far the ability to go ahead and generate address labels, so if you want to print your report cards out and snail mail them, you can definitely do so. Of course, as you'll notice on here, you can also save these report cards as PDF files, meaning that you can download them into your computer and convey them in other methods if you'd like to. But by far the easiest method of conveying a report card to a parent through Gradelink is by publishing it directly online. When running a report card, you can click a button that will automatically publish a copy of this report card onto the parent's portal, meaning that the next time that they log in to see how well their students are doing, they can go ahead and click a button that will allow them to download a report card onto their device, whether it's a laptop, tablet, or smartphone. Not only is it easy for them to download with the click of a button, but you as the end user administrator will also get the ability to run a report that will show you which parents have seen it and which parents have not yet opened it. It's kind of like a signature, but online, a digital signature. Transcripts are largely similar, a little bit less customizable, but that's kind of the nature of the beast, as oftentimes transcripts need to be fairly similar from location to location in order for them to be easily digestible. That being said, there's still a large degree of customization that we can input when we're setting up your transcripts, and just like report cards, when you first get signed up with Gradelink, we want to make sure that we work with you to design whatever you feel most comfortable with, including mimicking what you have currently in place if that's what you want to maintain moving forward. You'll notice on here that transcripts, of course, take a more comprehensive view as far as how well the student has performed longitudinally over their stay at your organization. We can also include sections for things like graduation requirements, important test scores, and even awards, accomplishments, and achievements that the child has received over their time at the school. At the bottom of the transcript, we can also show signatures, as well as cumulative, GPA, credits, and class rank, both weighted and unweighted if you honor honors and AP classes that give you GPA boosts. At the top of the page are different buttons that I can utilize to make changes to my transcripts. Let's say, for example, that I catch a mistake, like American Literature being a C-, even though the child got a 69.8%. We might want this to display a D+. So instead of going all the way back to my American Literature class from trimester 2, 2014-2015, meaning going back possibly 4.5 years ago and digging through those grade sheets, I can click the Edit Grades button at the top, and I can immediately make a change to this specific grade. Similarly, if the student transferred units, credits, or class grades from another institution, I can click Add Grades in the top left and add grades directly to the transcript without having to create an existing class within Gradelink. Similarly to report cards, transcripts can be printed out, saved as PDF files, or shared directly with parents and students online in the form of an unofficial copy. This unofficial transcript does not look nearly as nice as this official copy. It lacks namely the pomp and circumstance that exists here. But if you can imagine just kind of copying and pasting all of this data into maybe like an email and sending it over, that's more or less what it looks like. So it can't be used in a professional manner, but of course it does share with them a good idea of how well their child has performed over the course of the entire stay, and especially for high school students who are applying to colleges, is a useful tool. At this point, we've taken a pretty thorough look as far as what Gradelink can do on a general sense. That being said, we haven't had an opportunity over this last hour or so to cover just about everything that Gradelink has to offer. We have left out a few things here and there. So if you are interested in reaching out to Gradelink to learn a little bit more about some of the features that we can offer, if you have specific questions that maybe weren't answered today, or if you're interested in getting price quotes, we'd be more than happy to discuss with you at a later time. If you want to reach out to me, you can go ahead and reach me at 1-800-742-3083 extension 120. Or you can email me directly with any questions or quote requests that you have at taylor@gradelink.com. We'd be happy to help you out. If you're an existing Gradelink customer, we recommend that you do dial the 800 number and reach out to your existing account executive. If you don't know who they are, you can always go ahead and dial extension 2, and the support team will be able to help you out from there. if you're interested in learning how to utilize any existing features that you saw today or implement any premium services that we talked about, such as online enrollment or text and voice messaging. We want to thank you guys again for sitting down with us and seeing how you can utilize Gradelink to hopefully improve your school. Hopefully we're able to answer a number of your questions, and if anything else does pop up, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you guys. Take care.